Lots changed.
It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. I'm coming to you from Sacramento, the state's capital, and we are joined by the newest member of the California State Senate. His name is Mike Morrell. Congratulations to you and Joni.
Thank you very much.
A tremendous victory.
It was
you
nice.
Scared off all the competition, and you won in a special election outright, getting more than 50% of the vote. What went right? You got 1 million voters you got to convince.
You had 5 candidates in a race. One Libertarian who was a council member, another Republican, Hispanic lady, a councilwoman, and then 2 Democrats plus myself. So the political pundits thought it would be difficult for me to get over 50% of the vote, so I didn't have to go to a runoff. But I tell you what, I stuck to the message of limiting government's power in our life, and it just seemed to, I had a message. I never changed my message to whether conservatives or liberals, but just too much government interference. And I was surprised. I was expected to win, but not. I won by almost 64% of the vote.
It was a tremendous victory.
Yeah.
But I must say, you did also, one could argue, scare off a formidable candidate.
Yeah.
That being the spouse of a former member of the state legislature.
Yeah.
And so she was seen as the most viable against you. She just opted against running. But to break 60% in a special, admittedly in a district that is more Republican, it says a lot about coalition building that you were able to create.
Yeah, I was fortunate. You know, I got to tell you, my principles are conservative, but that sometimes when that conjures up images of different people that are conservative that I don't like. But my brand of conservatism is there's certain things and traditions that I want to save. You know what I mean? And so, and one of those are more money for families, and of course that results in lower taxes.
And what's interesting about you, if I can interrupt, is when you were in the Assembly, you were the only Republican to have won in 2012 in a plus Democratic district. Did I say that correctly?
You did.
So something, yes, you are a conservative, but somehow there's an appeal there.
Well, I think the thing is, number one, you just show up, you know, and a lot of times Republicans, they don't show up. And so you show up, you lay out your principles, but you keep coming back, you know. And
you invited me to hear someone named Karl Rove speak.
You're right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Now, whatever you think about Karl Rove, I'm going to put that aside. But he said that exact thing.
Yeah.
Republicans just need to show up.
Just, you know, it's been good, but not just show up. Like, for an example, on different groups and things like that. Whenever they need certificates to recognize somebody, we call ahead and say, is there anybody you're honoring at your group this week? We'd like to be a part of that, you know? And that brings a lot of goodwill. And when you do that, people will open up to your message.
I can tell that you campaigned hard because I can see you got some nice color on your face, which means you were walking.
I was walking and went to see our son at the Gulf of Mexico.
Right. But be that as it may, my point is, when you were walking, what were people saying to you? Because it's an interesting time in California. We probably have turned the corner, but you live in the Inland Empire, so there's some concerns.
Number one, people are worried about 2 things overall. Number one, jobs, not just for them, but for you know, others, you know, their fellow citizen. But also people are concerned about debt, not just for themselves, but what we're passing on to the next generation. That is overwhelmingly the 2 things. And really, whether you look at ancient Greece or modern Greece, progressivism, the expansion of the bureaucratic state, is what gets us there. And so that's the message I stayed on. And I think, it appears like I captured a lot of votes from both sides of the aisle, as well as from a lot of independents and declining states, because government expands, liberty contracts, and we're seeing that.
Let's talk more about that when we come back.
You got it.
For our viewers on HLN, we've been speaking with Senator Mike Morrell. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, sir, I want to continue our conversation. Now that you're in the Senate, talk to us about the differences. You were in a body of 80, now you're in a body of 40.
Well, that's half as many.
It is half as many. So what does that mean?
Well, here's what it means. It means, in some ways, you have double responsibility because you have 40 members that make votes that affect the lives of 38 million Californians. Unfortunately, again, government gets involved in telling us how to raise our kids, how to educate our children, even how to discipline them, unfortunately, how much money we should be able to keep, how much of business should be able to keep. And so what happens is those are powerful decisions. And so you better make sure you understand political, economic, and moral principles, so that you vote that, so you do, like the legislature, it's our duty to enact just laws.
What's interesting about what you have described is that Californians, to my eyes and ears, seem a little bit schizophrenic on issues surrounding what you discuss. On the one hand, they do have this libertarian bent where they want government to kind of stand clear. But on the other hand, when it comes to the environment, they vote to maintain AB 32. When it comes to certain regulations, they vote. So how do you juxtapose what some would see as a schizophrenia?
Well, I think, number one, we have to make a better arguments, meaning myself and my fellow Republicans. Number two, it's like the high-speed rail. Sometimes, you know, as they advertise these bills, the big print giveth and the little print taketh away. Now, when they did the high-speed rail, from my understanding, they took polls and said, if you could take this high-speed rail from LA to San Francisco in 2.5 hours and pay the same freight as a airplane, would you do it? Well, people said, yeah. Well, now that thing's running cost overruns. It's pushing $100 billion. And now, from my understanding, because all the legislators want that bullet train stopping in their towns in Central Valley, that's gone from about 2.5 hours to about 4 hours and 45 minutes, and that plane ticket's going to be pushing about $500. So
it begs the question.
So the voters voted for it, but over 70% of them now do not want that, because the cost overrun, the fact that it's going to cost double what a plane ticket's going to cost, going to take twice as long to get there as what they were told.
It begs the question about what the voters want. What we do know is the voters are a bit flummoxed about what's happening in Sacramento. We have 3 members of the state Senate that have been expelled. 2 of them have been alleged to engage in bona fide corruption. One has a residency issue. We can put that one aside. What is your sense of what's happening in the Capitol on the question of ethics?
Well, on the subject of ethics, you know, it's kind of interesting. We had an ethics seminar the other day, and some of the presenters did a really good job, but some of the questions that came out of people were crazy. First of all, he spoke about the rule of law, how you have to obey the rule of law, and the rule of law sort of is given to virtues of trustworthiness, integrity, and those kind of things. But we're increasingly in a world of moral relativism, where that means people, of course, who don't believe in the rule of law or that sort of thing. So after this ethics class was done about trustworthiness and honesty in politics, 2 of my friends from across the aisle said, yeah, but you have to admit there's been some great politicians, and they named LBJ as one who did this wrong, that wrong, and this wrong, but the end justifies the means. And so it was the class was encouraging, but those words, the fact, I don't think there's some people that get it.
Here's an interesting point, if I may say.
Because, by the way, you have to have virtue according to Tocqueville and Democracy in America. That's the only way for a democracy to survive.
I hear you. I hear you. There are 11 proposals making their way through the Senate that deal with ethics reform. One of them, for example, getting a lot of ink, banned fundraising for 100 days before the end of session. Well, okay, but what does that do? It gives you 100 less days to raise money that you need to raise to win.
Those are Band-Aid solutions. Those are, you know, powder puff to make it look like our legislature's doing something. I really, if I'm able to have a say, I'm a zero tolerance. I firmly believe in you punish people severely. You know, sort of the way it used to be. These guys who violate the public trust, especially something so egregious of perhaps running guns or defrauding people. We need to be very harsh on those, so that others will not want that sort of punishment. But to say, you know, we're going to suspend fundraising for 10 days and we're going to have a hotline, you know what? The only thing bad people know is tough laws.
He's Mike Morrell, member of the State Senate. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.